Welcome to Storycomic Presents, where we interview amazing storytellers and artists. This is episode 336. I'm your host, Barney Smith of Storycomic.com, and we're excited to have with us the internationally acclaimed illustrator and comic book artist, Andrew Krahnke.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. So before we went live, we were talking before the show started that you and I have a mutual connection, Phil Balsman.
Phil Balsman, yep. Fantastic.
Yep, and
lettering for years. Eisner Award winning.
That's right, Eisner Award winning, and he and you guys went to the Joe Kubert School of Design together, correct?
Yep, we are same class, all 3 years. We sat next to each other, second and third year. Great friend, hung out with him a ton. Yeah, wonderful guy to have around.
He's amazing guy. He messaged me a couple months ago, and he sent me, "You have to get Andrew on the show. He has done this amazing book called BLOODRIK, and more people need to know about this book. It's in Image Comics too, correct?"
Yep.
Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about this, Andrew. BLOODRIK. This is you have it's issues. It's 1 through 3, correct? There's 3 issues to it, and the latest one just came out as of this recording a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, like week and a half ago, I think.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
so talk to us about BLOODRIK.
It's 3-issue miniseries. It's something I started writing, or a character I came up with back in 2009, I think.
Wow.
The first sketch of him, and I say in the opening to the first issue, I'm an illustrator first and a writer second, so it took me about 10 years to come up with a decent story that I could illustrate. And it's not a very dense story. It's very simple. I tried to keep it as simple as possible, but is mainly my excuse to draw a big brute stomping through the snow and hunting and all sorts of other fun heavy metal inspired imagery and that kind of stuff. It's
right.
Yeah, pretty good distillation of a lot of my influences, I think. So.
And so talk to us a little bit about, first you kind of came up with the idea of the character or the world itself.
Character first. I'm
okay.
The type of guy just like to sit and design characters, draw interesting looking dudes, and then just kind of think of the story of what they could be or the kind of world they could inhabit around that. I was listening to a lot of Viking metal back in 2009, and just wanted something that kind of fit the aesthetic. Wanted to draw a big, burly dude. I don't know. I was on another one of my Stephen Platt kicks or something like that, and those two things together, I guess BLOODRIK kind of came out. So.
Okay, I see. So talk to us a little bit about BLOODRIK. What's his character? So we're looking at, for our audio listeners, we're looking at this this image of him just like holding up all these animals that he seemed to have hunted. Is that what
that's how BLOODRIK pictures himself, as this big, even bigger and burlier, more decked out woodsman hunter.
Okay.
Who's sees himself as the king of the woods. The woods is his basically his grocery store, and anything that lives inside that woods is his to eat. And that idea he doesn't care for. So at the beginning of this story, when he's out hunting and he can't find something to eat, he gets very frustrated and angry. He doesn't understand it. It confuses him, and he I don't know how to describe it. He doesn't deal well with failure. He's not a well adapted guy to that. So
okay.
Yeah, he forces himself into an area of into a wasteland and stuff where he's not familiar with the environment or landscape, and gets himself into trouble. He lets his ego kind of lead him into trouble, I guess is the way I would
okay.
But
now, is this is this a kind of a comic book that seems to have some sort of homage to Conan and Gru the Wanderer, or what is? Because there seems to be some comedy, and there's also seems to be some, blood with it too.
Yeah, I would definitely say more Gru than Conan.
Okay.
I don't know how much I should say about how little I've read of Conan comics. I'm aware I bought some just for the art because they had some good artists on it over the years. But I'm not
Right.
I'm not a Conan head. I don't know his mythology or any of that stuff. I've read more Gru comics for sure, and I do like to try to add the humor into it without being too goofy or over the top. But yeah, definitely inspired by any of the comics that are just a single character, kind of traipsing across a landscape or getting into different environments and stories. Could be Gru, could be Usagi Yojimbo, Hellboy. Where it's just kind of a single main character. You can kind of plop him into a lot of different stories.
Okay.
I think he's kind of a good fit for that. And yeah, each issue has a backup story in it.
Okay.
The main story in the three issues I'd originally done as two small ash cans just to sell at conventions and stuff like that. And then I kind of fleshed it out with a few more pages and with the full color and everything once it got picked up at Image.
So, so talk to us a little bit about that. So you wrote this out first, and then did you approach Image, or did they come knock on your door? How did that work?
Image didn't approach me. I got a little help from Robert Kirkman. He follows me on Twitter.
Okay.
And he saw me posting the ash cans and some of the art from the book. And he just hit me up and wanted copies of the ash cans. And so I was able to get that to him at New York Comic Con one year. And then when I finally put the pitch together to get it ready to submit to Image, I just hit him up and said, hey, can I run the pitch past you? And he said, sure, email it to me. And he gave me his email address. And so I sent him the pitch. And like a couple hours later, he sent me back an email and it just said, congratulations in it. And he had sent the pitch personally to Eric Stevenson, who gave it the thumbs up. And that was basically the pitch process. It was one day. It was very quick. I did not expect it to be like that. I thought I'd have to go through, the normal channels.
Right.
So it got a big help from Robert Kirkman. I owe him a lot for that.
Right.
Yeah.
And also too, it looks like it's already had a second printing. Issue number one's already had a second printing, so it seems to have done really well so far.
It did decent. I was really happy. Yeah, the first issue sold out. Like the first day it was on the shelves, I got the email that said, hey, people had enough reorders that the first issue had sold out. So we went ahead and did the second printing. The response is very good. It's comic books, so you always kind of wish that it would sell more no matter what you sell. These days comics, single issues aren't in the best shape, but it did very well. I'm a pretty much unknown creator. This is the first thing I've ever put out just by myself. So, new character nobody knows, new creator nobody knows. The fact that a decent amount of people took a chance on it, is pretty proud of that. So I was very, very happy with the response.
Because it's a 3-issue miniseries, which seems, for someone that's collected comics over the years, there's always been 4-issue minis or 6 issues. I've never seen a 3-issue miniseries. What made you decide to just have it be 3 issues?
Yeah, there's not a ton of them out there. The only ones I can think of where 3 issues go are when they back in the day, like Marvel would adapt like a movie adaptation. They would do that, like the Indiana Jones movies. I remember those adaptations because I love those. They were all 3 issues, but it doesn't happen that much. Really, the only reason BLOODRIK is 3 issues is the original story I did wasn't that long, so I could really only break it into 3 issues, and even that was kind of stretching it. That's why I did the backup stories in each issue to kind of flesh it out. And you want people to get bang for their buck when they pick the thing up. So yeah, I couldn't make it any longer than 3, and 2 I guess felt too short. So yeah.
Is this there going to be more now, since it seems to be doing really well? Is there more BLOODRIK issues that you're wanting to do now? More stories that you want to tell with the character?
Yeah, I'm in the process of writing the second one right now.
Okay.
I've got the bulk of it kind of figured out. I just need to sit down and actually write the script, which will take a decent amount of time. But yeah, there's more. Yeah, I'm also in the process of putting the trade together right now, getting some supplemental material in the back of that, like making of, behind the scenes, work in progress stuff. Yeah, and also writing the second chapter of whatever BLOODRIK is going to be eventually. So
Right. Well, and so what makes a really good protagonist is having either like supporting characters or antagonists. So what are some of the things that those that are listening say, well, tell me a little bit more about it, Andrew. So what kind of the story arc is that he's encountering?
I would say it's definitely kind of like a man versus nature kind of thing, where he's basically his only. I view him as just a woodsman / hunter. So basically, his only real struggle in life is just food and whatever, surviving the landscape that he's in. Again, when I was working out the story, I'm an illustrator first, and so keeping it as simple as possible was kind of my goal. But so yeah, it's just hunger, and then also just his own head. I don't want to use the word stupid, but that's kind of, he's a bit dumb or single-minded, not a real good guy at reasoning things out.
Right.
So it's a little bit man versus nature, man versus himself, and those are probably his two biggest challenges and kind of what drive the main story. And then the three backup stories is just every time BLOODRIK needs to learn stuff, I guess is the thing, because he's, like I say, not the sharpest tool. But then the landscape is try to keep it interesting, drawing forests and cool stuff like that, and yeah, I don't know, try to make cool visuals out of everything. But
And is this something that takes place in like a fictional world, fantasy world, or does this take place on Earth?
I view it as fictional.
Okay.
There's I mean, a dragon shows up in the second issue.
Okay.
BLOODRIK's not sure if it's a real or if it's figment of his imagination, but I think it's a fantasy world. That being said, I don't like to lean too heavily into. I can't imagine ever putting a wizard in any BLOODRIK story or any mystical stuff like that, because I'm not a huge fan of that kind of thing. I'm also don't think I could pull it off and not sound cheesy, so try to keep things fairly grounded in real life with just a little bit of extra stuff, whether it's BLOODRIK hallucinating or eating something he shouldn't and seeing monsters in his head, that kind of thing. You can still keep it interesting, but also fairly real.
Because you've been a skilled illustrator and artist for over 20 years now. Was there any part of this comic that you kind of extended out your skill a bit to learn more about, whether it be drawing a particular animal or landscape or tree? Is there was something in there that you deliberately wanted to put in to challenge yourself as an artist?
Yeah. The environment, kind of like what you're talking about, the animals, that was an important part for me to, draw them realistically, but not from a textbook, if that makes sense. Trying to, keep energy to the animals while still keeping them accurate to life was an important thing. The main struggle for me was doing the color of the book.
Okay.
I think I'm an okay colorist, but that was the thing I was the most worried about, and the thing I honestly spent the longest time on. It was much quicker to draw it than it was to color it.
Okay.
I don't have that process down. I know there's guys that can do it fast and probably could have done it a lot better than I could, but that was the main thing I was kind of worried about, was, picking the right color palette and making sure nothing looked too stupid or too boring. It's kind of hard.
And so what do you use? Do you use like Photoshop or Clip Studio? What do you use for your
I use Photoshop.
Okay.
I'm not always the best at adopting new technology, and I've been using Photoshop for 20 years, and I hope I never have to learn anything else, but we'll see. Yeah, just kind of picking like one of the right colors, because people do a lot. You can do a lot in Photoshop with comic books, and people do some crazy, amazing things, and I probably couldn't pull any of those off. So I wanted to keep it very simple and kind of almost like a color palette that would have been in comics back in the late 80s, early 90s, before computer colors kind of went crazy and everybody started doing over-rendered gradients on everything, which isn't my favorite. So just kind of figuring that out was a lot of fun, but also took a little work.
And so when it came to actually, as you said, you've been working on this for quite a while. Um, did you write the script out first? Because you mentioned that you kind of like were doodling and you kind of came up with a character. At what point did you sat down and were like serious about writing the script? And did you have any of your writer friends kind of proof it before you actually started to sketch out the comic?
Lay out the pages. That
Yeah.
would have been smart. I have a few writer friends that probably should have ran it past. It started like I had written like 3 or 4 different scripts for BLOODRIK over the 10 years, and I thought, okay, that I wrote a decent script, and then I would kind of just set it aside for a little bit, and I'd go back to it, and I wasn't real happy with it. And it was, I revised the same kind of idea over and over again, and finally, like the last script, the one I ended up working off of, was very simple. The story was a lot smaller than other things I had written, and it's kind of how I wanted to keep it, because the longest thing I had written and drawn up till starting BLOODRIK was like a 12-page short story thing just for fun. And so this was a much bigger thing. And so I wanted it to kind of start as like a, like a bite side, like an idea, like a very simple script. And then I was just going to start drawing pages. And if those pages worked, and I'd keep doing more and more and just kind of keep doing pages until it got into a full size thing. And so the script was it was full beginning to end. All the dialogue was in there. The narration was in it. And then just kind of what BLOODRIK was doing in between those things. So it wasn't like broken down by pages or panels, definitely not by panels. So yeah, like I said, it was a full script, but it was written just for me. I knew I was going to be the only one reading it, and the only one that had to make sense out of it. So yeah, and that's kind of the system I've been using for like the backup stories and the one I'm working on now. It seems to work best for me.
Right. And so how does this compare, BLOODRIK, illustrating your own comic as compared to working on somebody else's comic?
It's definitely different. I prefer working on stuff that I've written and I kind of have control over, because I can change things on the page, and that happened a lot. Where like I'd have dialogue written out in the script, and then as I'm laying out panels, go, well, that word balloon would fit better here, and you can kind of just do that on the fly when you're the writer and artist. Or you go like, I need a mood panel or a mood couple of panels in between things, and you can just pace the book better. You just have more, I don't know, you can affect the feel of the book more, and you can be much more naturalistic with the way you approach the story and get it out there. And when you're working with another writer, I personally, because my day job is a freelance illustrator, and I work with our directors and clients, and everybody has opinions, and my job is to give them what they want and try to interpret what they want, and try to be very mindful of what will make them happy. And so when you're working on a comic with a writer, I kind of fall into that role sometimes. I think a bit too much, where I don't maybe ask enough questions or push back or say, hey, we should do this, or I just kind of like take the script at face value and maybe do it too plainly, or just it feels very rigid to me, which is fine. It's a good exercise to try to interpret other people's ideas. That's definitely helped over the years. But it's a different creative process, and I sometimes think I work okay with others, but I don't think it's when I'm at my best. So I've had a lot of blasts working with other writers, and on other people's scripts, and it's cool to interpret fun ideas, and I've gotten to do it quite a bit. But it's just I don't think I've ever hit a home run when I'm drawing other people's.
Is this going to give you more freedom to concentrate on your own IP than it is to working on somebody else's IP now?
I think so. I mean, I don't want to go back to working on other people's scripts. I guess the ones I've done this once, and it was addictive. The whole process, just beginning to end, was a blast. A lot of work, and there was a lot of headaches along the way, but it was just a lot of fun getting it out there and getting the feedback from people has been awesome. I mean, I haven't made a ton of money off it, but again, that's comic books. So, I mean, I suppose you always have the freedom to do whatever you want as long as you don't have to worry about money. But
Right.
yeah, it's definitely given me the confidence, which is the biggest thing that BLOODRIK has done. Is just the confidence to do it again. I've done it once, and it feels like a more attainable thing.
Right.
If you've never done it, for 20 years after I got out of Kubert school, I hadn't made my own comic, which feels like time wasted a little bit. But once you do it once, it all of a sudden becomes less of a big idea in my head, and much more attainable, and something that I definitely want to focus on for sure.
Right. Perfect. So then, so Andrew, if people want to learn more about your work and your product, where's the best place they could go to?
Chumline.com. That's my website. It's got some of the comics I've done, samples of that, some pinups and stuff like that. Links to all my social media stuff. I post pretty regular on Instagram just to stay active and get stuff out there.
And Shark House.
Shark House, that's the longest thing I had written before BLOODRIK. It was a 12-page, just fun little comic I did on my lunch breaks at work.
Right. And then and BLOODRIK is right on the top. That's sold out first printing on issue number 1, and second printing is already out. And so for those that are interested in wanting to pick up BLOODRIK, the best place they could go to then is probably going to your local comic book shop.
Go to your local comic shop, and if they still have issues, you can grab them there. If all goes as planned, the trade will come out mid-June. That's when it's scheduled for right now. Like I say, I'm putting it together, and unless there's a hiccup, it should be out then. It should be on Amazon and all the normal places.
Well, listen, Andrew, when you have your next BLOODRIK story coming out, you got to come back on and talk about it.
Yeah, that would be great.
Well, thank you so much, Andrew.
No, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. Just happened?
I don't know. You just disappeared. Did you hit a button or something?
I wasn't touching nothing.
Okay, that was weird.
Goes in the machine.
That's good. I get to edit this part out. That's fine. So
Okay,
it'll be so smooth, nobody will even notice. So, yeah,
that's good.
yeah.
Feel free to.
So once again, say again that you have to put the trade together. Say that part.
Yeah, I'm